Love. So we're gonna get rolling. We're here, Coffee with the Founder. I got my coffee, my drink here, and of course, along with some special guests, as we know them as a group, is City Love, but Dwight Dunston and Brian Jordan, and of course, a third member of City Love who's new to the group, and hopefully we'll be able to work out some technology and get Imani on the phone as well. What's up, City Love? Listen, what we're doing with Coffee with the Founder is trying to introduce people to the people who are part of the WPC family, a part of the network. A lot of people see you on stage, maybe see you in workshops. They don't really get to know who you are, but also what you do when you go back home in your community. And so this is an opportunity to do that. So I want to start by asking you, and Dwight, you could start, but introduce yourselves, who you are, and how you introduce yourself to folks when you're meeting them, whether it's at a train stop or at a conference, individually, but also just talk a little bit about City Love and how that came about, because I think it's something I'd love to have folks know about and be reminded about myself. Who are you and who is this City Love group?
Yeah. Well, if we were doing a little show, I would actually be like, to my right is one of the most talented, musicians I know, educators, gardeners, just folks, Brian Caselli Jordan.
Thank you. And I would say to my left, or where, I'm not sure how the screens are working, but in some direction from me is one of the most wonderful people I ever met, Dwight Sterling Dunston, MC extraordinaire, educator, activist, visionary, all of that.
And then we say something like, together we are City Love. But we can't even do that, right? So yeah, I'm Dwight Dunston, aka Sterling Duns, musician, educator, activist here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I've been a musician for truthfully, for the past 9 years. Have been working in education for the past 9 years, and really just somebody committed to really helping to bring my truth, my beliefs about a more equitable, just world through art, music, and have been involved in WPC for, I guess, Brother Eddie, about maybe five years now or so. 6 years. I met you about 6 years ago. So it had to be, I think, about 5 years, and just really committed to racial justice work, thinking about environmental justice work, and just, really using all of my resources and energy and gifts to bring about a more connected, just world. So it's a pleasure to be here chatting with you. I'm gonna pass it to Brian, maybe tell him a little about ourselves, and then we can get in the origin of City Love.
All right. My name is Brian Caselli Jordan. I use he, him pronouns, and I've been a kindergarten teacher for the last 7 years and a teacher for about 13 years. And I've been a part of City Love for 6 years now, since we first founded it. And really just trying to use music to try and make music for the world we need. Trying using music to open up dialogue and spread love, to try, we always talk about trying to use music to paint a tangible vision of where we need to go in the world, and the beautiful things that are already happening in the world. And try and bring people together, try and circumvent a lot of the walls that we put up in conversations. And and besides that, I love growing vegetables, growing plants, and using that. So that's a big part of my way of engaging in environmentalism, is trying to get kids to love the plants and take care of the plants and understand how the plants are taking care of them. Just a lot of teaching, a lot of music, a lot of growing plants, and just trying to spread love as much as I can with each day, with each breath, and learn as much as I can.
So who wants to speak to City Love? How did the coming together happen?
You want to start that off, Bri?
Okay, sure. We could jump in. So let's see. We met a little over 6 years ago at a friend's going away party, and yeah, got to check in, and later on, I got to go hear one of Dwight's concerts with another group he was in called Future Mama, and it was a school night. I went out there to this concert. It was really cold out. I biked over there, and the concert was running a little bit behind, which was such a blessing because then I got to sit and talk with Sterling Duns over here for like maybe an hour or so before the show started. And it was just like the most deep connection, just like, throwing all philosophy, politics, just like dove right into things. And
then my man was like, all right, I got to go. Before the set even started, Brother Eddie, he bounced before my band even played. He straight, just like that. He just walked away. And I said, what the heck? But before he left, he gave me this CD. And I was like, that was one of the deepest combos. And I kept this CD in my guitar case for a long time. And finally, I popped it into my car. And I was like, there's no way that's the same string beanie white guy, that voice on this track. I was like, yo, I have to hit him up. I have to make music with him. This is some of the most angelic, beautiful, soulful vocals that I heard. And we started jamming out, 6 years ago, and just messing around with a few different songs that, we talk about. They were all love songs. Sometimes they were of the romantic kind. Sometimes they were of the way that Cornel West talks about love. Justice is what love looks like in public, and so we were just starting to build a repertoire of different songs. And one of our earliest songs was a song called Colorblind, which when we think about whiteness and race, was really addressing very intentionally, what's problematic about being colorblind or trying to paint a colorblind society. And so that really felt like our entryway into really thinking about issues of equity and justice and what does racial justice look like? It's us speaking up, using our voices, exuding love in public. It means, when we got to speak to something, we got to do it. And so.
Yeah. So talk to me, because a lot of times when people think justice, racial justice, social justice, or grappling with issues like privilege, white supremacy, they don't think of vocals and guitars in reference to a medium to do that. Just talk a little bit about, the role of music in really battling and challenging and trying to build the kind of world that we are often fighting for, that I think sometimes music is not always aligned with pursuing social justice.
Well, I think that, something that we try to do early on. So Dwight mentioned the song Colorblind that we worked on. But I think then, maybe that was our second song that we did. Maybe our fourth song was, we read The New Jim Crow together, and then tried to distill as much of that as we could into a song. And so trying to take, 300-page book or something like that, and try and get the main key points and some of those main dynamics and pack it into this 3-minute song, and there's a hook, and get those points across to someone that may or may not have taken the time to read those 300 pages or engage with that reality in any way. But they just think, oh, here's a song. And then like all of a sudden they get hit with a message with a completely different view of things, with a systems analysis of racial oppression that, if someone just tries and talks to you about that, you might put up a lot of walls. But someone starts singing a song that's, you're kind of like dancing, and oh, wait, what's that? What's those words saying? And then but by then you've already heard it, you've already felt it in your bones, you're getting hit with the emotion of it. And music is such a powerfully emotive form. I think about how many times I've gotten shivers from hearing someone sing or hearing a performance. And I really feel like it's almost like the broadcasting of an emotion. It's like when you're creating music, you're trying to embody this feeling or this essence and just blast it out, broadcast it so powerfully that others are literally vibrating with you on that frequency. And so if you're trying to paint this image of mass incarceration as a phenomenon, or whatever aspects of systemic oppression, and you can try and hold that, some of the emotion of that in your body, and broadcast it out, I think that's the most powerful thing for someone to feel that emotion and to get the narrative, get the information, but perhaps most importantly, to feel it in their body. I don't know, you want to say some more about that, Dwight? Okay.
Well, Dwight, let me ask you, because I mean, not often do we see a kind of black-white tandem, and like you said, I mean, some skinny white dude blasting out, you know, some bars and some sounds that don't quite often match. I mean, what's been some of the reaction to kind of the multiracial appearance of City Love, black, white, and also talking about some of the things y'all talk about? Is it always a warm embrace, or have you got some pushback along the way about, you know, whether you're pushing too hard or you're not pushing hard enough?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. I think I can remember a lot of times where maybe we had some more internal conversations about, like, are we pushing too hard? Are we not pushing enough? Rather than getting some folks from the outside pushing back on us. You know, we like to say that it'd be like, you know, we're like, if Jack Johnson and Kendrick Lamar came to your kindergarten, you know, we're your kindergarten teachers. You know, that's something like what we bring. Or if Mr. Rogers and James Baldwin were your kindergarten teachers, and now we added, you know, Imani. It's like adding Miss Lauryn Hill was your kindergarten teacher, you know, or like Ella Baker was also your kindergarten. You know, it's just like, so the ways I think people have been more open and receptive, because when you get hit with, people usually comment on, like, our sounds matching in ways they never thought. And I think it's like the nicer way of saying, I didn't expect the string being white guy from Chicago and the black kid from West Philly to, like, you know, to really merge, you know, and homegirl from West Philly to really merge. I think, but people hear something in the music, the vocals, the harmonies, layered with MCing, you know, the sort of poignant lyricism that you know, we try to bring and infuse in our music, that people, it just really opens people up. A lot of people don't know the first two songs. They don't know really how to engage with it. You know, they're like trying to they're like sizing us up, trying to still figure out, like, you know, what are they about? You know, and we're dropping these messages about connecting across difference, across race, about how to stand up for one another, about what it means to be privileged, you know, in a male body, and what it means to, you know, really actively work against the ways we've been taught to be, you know, as men, sexist or misogynistic. Or, you know, Brian really boldly talks about race and being white and his ancestors being white, and what the privileges of being white have afforded him and his family, and complexifying that for folks as you know, I'm painting my picture of growing up black and having folks, you know, in this country being enslaved, and what the laws did for me and my people, you know, to hold folks back. So we're painting all these pictures, and people are they're really spending most of the time, or some of the time, trying to figure out, like, what are we about? And then once again, that love just comes through. It's like, we're not about shame and blame here. Like, we actually we gotta level up, you know. We don't have time as a group to you know, hit you over the head again and again with what you did wrong. We want to paint the picture, want to call you in, you know, call out the deed, call in the person. And we just really are able to do that really effectively, I think, through music.
Yeah, I'd like both of you to just concisely talk about growing up. Is this what you thought you'd be doing? What were you thinking? How were you thinking when you were a youngster growing up? And when did you realize, like, this is what I want to do?
You want to start? You want me to start?
I can try and be succinct. I've always been musically inclined. I feel very grateful and blessed. My dad was a drummer. I grew up going to church. I was in the choir. There's stories my grandfather tells is that I used to organize all the adults in a room and make them sing, you know, like literally direct folks to sing. And the first rap that I ever wrote, rapped out in front of people, I was 9 years old on a Sunday in church, you know, rapping Kirk Franklin, you know, so, and just like feeling the music in my body and like kind of checking out how people would move along to the words that I was saying. So I didn't necessarily know that I would be in the lane to be creating music, be a creative, putting thoughts, ideas, and a vision for the world out there in the world. But I've always loved the power, like thinking about how we're connected to one another. And music has always been a way that I've seen people just from all different walks of life congregate and be in the same space as one another. And so I was always drawn to that. And I guess if you told me tomorrow, Brother Eddie, like if I juggled, that could get a room full of people from different races together in a room, like I would learn how to juggle, because, or if I, something else random, I would do that. But music has always been that thing. So.
Yeah. What about you, Brian?
Well, that actually, I would come back to the first song we mentioned, Colorblind, and I'm just gonna sing a little bar. Born colorblind, I never understood the meaning of our skins. I never learned that we are equal but so different, running in a race that white began with such a lead. Running on the backs of others, counting dollars born on native soil by toil of slaves. And so, I mean, definitely growing up colorblind and really having no context to this, I never would have imagined myself in this role. And although I definitely had so many racial messages in my life and so many omissions and present in segregation in very visible ways in schooling and neighborhood, all these things, the ways that it wasn't talked about in my school or in my family and understood in these explicit or systemic ways, like I just never would have thought. And, it wasn't until I got to go to college up in Wisconsin, actually, in your state there in Madison, Wisconsin, and was very fortunate to live at a housing co-op. An incredible mentor named Carl Williams really started to introduce the ideas of white privilege, of racial justice in these systemic lenses that I had never come into contact with as a privileged white guy. And so just started trying to educate myself, and it's just been and it will be a lifelong journey, but it's been a nonstop, just trying to understand what I can. And on the music end, I was blessed to grow up around so much music, and my grandpa taught himself trumpet. My mom was singing in a jazz band. My uncle was playing jazz drums, and that, music was just all around. My older sisters were playing music all the time. So I kind of was born into that. And so really trying to put the two together became really clear, because once I got into the role of education, just realizing how powerful of a tool music was. And so it's just, I knew that these two things had to come together. And when I met Dwight, it was, I was actually planning to move back to Chicago to be close to family. And when I met him and we started making music together, it was like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I need to stay out here and do this and make this music. So it's been a real calling and a blessing in my life.
All right. Well, I want to ask y'all about the education aspect of your work in your life. And I'll start with you, Brian. I'm wondering, often people are talking about what's age appropriate for kids around this subject matter. And knowing that you both are working with a range of ages, but you, Brian, especially working with some real early learners, so to speak, what's been your sense? I mean, people often say, oh, the youth of the day, they're going to be the ones to change it around because they don't see color, all that kind of stuff. So just because you two are both in the world of education around young people day to day, based on the age groups you're working with, you performed in front of, you've done workshops around, what's the state of the young people around issues of diversity, power, privilege, and leadership? And I'll start with you, Brian.
Okay, thank you for these wonderful questions. So you mentioned kind of this idea out there that people are saying, oh, children don't see race, and they just, if we just let them be, it's going to be great. They'll solve the problems. And that's such an attractive idea, right? And I think the reality, though, is that it's the same as it's always been, that the children are swimming in this culture. They're getting bombarded with these images in magazines and shows. They see a picture of the Congress, who knows what. They see the president up there. They're getting bombarded with messages of white supremacy. And then, then there's all this research out there showing that the children are internalizing all these messages about race from an early age. And that goes back to Doctors Mamie and Kenneth Clark with the doll study way back, and has been corroborated so many times since then with Dr. Howard Stevenson's research and Dr. Walter Gilliam, Debbie Lekeenan. So many different amazing researchers and leaders in this field. And then that kind of butts up against a lot of the messaging saying, oh, well, children are, you can't talk about these things with children. They're too young. They're not ready. It's not developmentally appropriate. And, so that, I think, like, there are those kind of two pervasive myths that are reinforcing each other in different ways, like both that oh, children, they're colorblind, they already figured it out, and or they're not ready to talk about this. But yeah, the reality is that the prejudice is happening all the time. Like Dr. Walter Gilliam showing the expulsion rates in preschools for Black and brown children is higher than at any other age group. And definitely just the way that prejudice manifests in terms of kids choosing who they want to play with, choosing dolls they want to play with, seeing themselves in books. So it's all happening already, and we just need to figure out the ways to give children the context, because they're taking notes to our responses to people. They're seeing who we associate with, who's on the books that we're reading to them, et cetera, et cetera. And if we don't give them context, they're not going to just infer systemic racism. That's not something that a 4- and 5-year-old is going to just naturally deduce from seeing the symptoms of systemic oppression. So if we don't give them context, they're going to go with meritocracy. Oh, if somebody isn't rich, it's because they're bad, it's because they're lazy, it's because they're not good enough, etc. Or something like that. We gotta help them make sense and understand that the world hasn't been fair, it's still not fair, and we can work to make it better.
Dwight, now remind me, because I wasn't sure if you were in early childhood or middle school, high school, or you're working with a range of kids. But is there anything you would add from your experience, whatever grade level you're working with, as it relates to the state of the young person around these issues?
Yeah, I've mostly worked with high schoolers, but 3 years ago, I stepped into a nursery through 12th grade role as the coordinator of equity and justice education. And so I've gotten to spend different time with different age groups, not as much as Brother Brian. I definitely lean on him, some other brilliant just mentors to just be more knowledgeable about just how young people develop their sense of self and being in community with other folks. But at the high school age, James Baldwin has a quote, children have never been very good at listening to their elders, but they've never failed to imitate them, and I just really think about, as Brian so beautifully put, we can wish the best for young people. We can say they're going to figure it out, but without the tools and skills to navigate this beautifully complex world that they've inherited, they didn't create it, but they're certainly inheriting, what the choices that the adults in their life and generations back have made. They are just very prone to repeat some of the same interactions, some of the same stereotypes, prejudices against one another. So I feel like young people are definitely uniquely poised to live full, whole lives where they're in authentic, healing, restorative relationships with one another. And also they're just bombarded, as Brian said, with so many messages. And I think for the high schoolers that I've gotten to work with over the last 9 years, the issues, there's like recurring issues, recurring things that come up, which is, and we as a school can respond, or we can put different things in place. But we're always trying to autocorrect or sort of overcorrect some of the things that folks are bringing into the school community, some of the things they're seeing outside of our school community, from the media, from the news, those kind of things. So I'm hopeful, though, because I have seen a shift in just the ways that young people are more aware and really are like, no, this is enough. We've seen enough. I think when I first started working there, well, it was in 2014 that I remember 2013. I remember first 14 seeing Black Lives Matter, right? And now we're a different president into the Black Lives Matter movement. We're in a different decade than when it first began, and just the young people's awareness of issues of justice, racial justice, economic, environmental justice is totally different and totally shifted. And I think, it's even more heightened today. And well, maybe we're going to get into this, but think about the pandemic and just some of the conversations I've had with young people and the ways that they feel fired up and ready to really make change and demand for more for their own lives and really the generation that's coming after them. It's been incredible to just bear witness to. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. A good segue, because I do want to ask y'all a little bit about COVID-19 and this quarantine time, because a lot of what I see when I'm looking and watching and hearing people ask questions about virtual curriculums, virtual learning, spending time with the two of you here just shortly made me think about, what about the arts? Is there anything being mentioned or talked about or shared with folks about the importance of having some arts learning involved in the virtual space? So I'm not sure what the answer to that is, but let's just say I'm a parent at home. I got a K through 8, someone that, Brian, you can advise, and I got a 9th through high schooler, Dwight, someone you could advise. And I'm going to start with you, Dwight. What would be some advice? What would be some suggestions? Are there some curriculum pieces, anything off the top of your head that you would recommend for that parent? Or what would be your message if you were talking to a virtual community of parents who want to know, what can I do artistically to keep that piece alive in my young person, but also to bring about some learning? So let's start with you, Dwight, but I'm also going to come to you, Brian, just to see what comes to your mind, what comes to your head when you think about answering that question and informing and advising parents who are at home, I think, trying to accomplish some academic scholarships. But I'm wondering, what's the verdict? What's the idea? What's the creativity around the arts?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. I immediately thought of this latest episode of a podcast that I was listening to that featured Alicia Keys and Brene Brown, and where Alicia Keys was talking about her process in creating, and just talked about really needing to be intentional about the space she created for herself, or the lane where she was getting big in the music industry and was having some trouble figuring out what was important to her. She's got all these people talking around her about which direction she could go, but she was like, but what do I love about making art and creating? And that just really resonated with me, because I think I said at the beginning of this year, 2020 was going to be the most important year to be an artist, a creative. I sort of spoke it out into the void. Nobody was really listening, but I was like, this is the most important year. I wrote it in my journal. And I think being creative can look a number of different ways. Certainly for me, I'm tapping into the lyric writing and thinking about some composition. But it could be drawing a picture. It could be doing a dance. I've seen young people in social media, in the ways that TikTok has now been this art form where people can do a dance, they can move their body. But that's for me a way to express yourself. And people are throwing their own remixes on it. It could be as obviously in moderation, but an app like that are different opportunities to support young people to be creative, to be in their bodies, to express themselves. It's sort of the ways that hip hop, naturally supports folks to find their own piece of themselves in either emceeing or DJing or breaking, moving your body, or graffiti, which is artwork. I just think the ways that parents can think about, what does my young person feel really drawn to in terms of self-expression? Because I think we all have it. We all have something. I've seen you, Brother Eddie, on the way you like groove on stage, or you might not be rhyming with us up there, but you know, your cadence, the way you are able to, you know, move a crowd and just, you know, I think that's an art form for me. I think you have, you know, you're very blessed with the written word, you know, and the spoken word. And so I think there can be, you know, I think about different activities you can do, but really it's just like sitting, being present with your young people. I know it's hard for those who have children at home, but yeah, carving out an hour to do something artistic, whether it's movement, whether it's painting, whether it's writing a song. I think that could just go a long way, because it helps, I believe it helps people make sense of what's going on around them, and then actually paint the kind of world they want to see by using art as that vehicle.
What about you, Brian? What do you think for a parent or guardian of a young person, K5, K8, in reference to the curriculum at home that's arts-based?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think that thankfully there's always going to be so much art out there. You know, music and art are just such medicines in times like this. And I think that, you know, kids are going to seek out music, families are going to seek out music and other art forms in this time, whether it's books, visual arts, movies, just all the creation that's out there. And the mediums for being creative are just they've just multiplied so much. So, I mean, you know, and it is possible to do a lot of this through Zoom and stuff. This morning, I got to be a guest, a special guest for this preschool class, and did songwriting with 23 preschoolers through Zoom, you know, and so it's like, it's definitely possible. And it's just a question about, is it being prioritized, and are people aware of the resources that are out there? Because the resources are there. And shameless plug among that, we've been working with an animator named Patricia Battles, and she just finished animating one of our songs called Beautiful, and she just did the most amazing job. And so among the bazillions of other artists out in the world trying to put art out there as medicine for all the children, all the families in this time, we're trying to do our part among that to get it out there and keep sending those messages. And I think there's a Leonard Bernstein quote that says, I don't know the exact words, but in essence saying, like, in hard times, we need to make art even more beautifully than ever before. And so, you know.
Yeah. Well, I want to get to the end, but y'all know y'all got to do a little something for me. You know, I feel like I wish I would have practiced with y'all so I could drop my 3 rhymes that I have.
Right.
But y'all may not have room for that. But
we got room.
No, we got room. There's always
20 this decade we got room, brother Eddie. Might not have had it last decade, but this decade we got room for you, baby.
But I'm wondering, like, what is a you know, a fun piece? What I mean, if y'all are ever like at a dinner party or you know, on Zoom, and somebody says, "Hey, I'd love for you to do a little piece, drop a little something about something of yours." Is there one of y'all's favorite that you've done together, you created together, that's kind of your go-to that you really like, or you wouldn't have a problem sharing, that you can just do on the spot? I'd love to have y'all just share a little piece of something, because I think, again, we've been talking to people, and I think this is a real opportunity to walk the walk and not just talk the talk. And so if y'all don't mind, can y'all just give us a little sample of some love? Citywide.
Okay, so the tricky thing is with Zoom, just for people listening, in case you didn't know, you can't have 2 voices at the same time. So that makes it a little tricky, but we're gonna work this out. It might seem a little offbeat.
I know it.
Yeah, it might just be my rhythm as a white dude. I don't know, but it might be the technology. I'm gonna blame the technology. Okay, so this is a little song called Addition. It goes, black, white, and every color. It was division, now it's addition. We got the numbers, it's time to add them up. It's always better when we're together. Your turn.
Education, food for the whole nation, enough love in your heart to battle all you facing. If the grass grows green on the other side, ask why the wall exists, why the divide. We all need each other, city level be your brother, as we gaze up together and forever wonder, what's the meaning of this whole thing? To laugh, to smile, to sing, and let joy ring. Come on!
Yeah. Wait, should I come back?
No. That's it, baby. We just leave them there, Brian.
No, that's good. That's good. That's good. You know, I think it's just really something that gives people a sample of the skill set, the lyrics, the fun, which I think we can't forget about as we do this tough work, particularly in this tough time, which may become tougher based on some of what we're experiencing as a nation in reference to social distancing, quarantine, people calling this the Chinese virus, the impact on people of color communities. Now these, barbaric kinds of policies towards immigrants and immigration. I mean, the world is gonna need folks pushing, challenging, but also folks being able to hear and feel the music. And I'm so glad City Love is a part of the WPC family. Let me ask y'all this. What's in the future? As you look at the next 10 years of your work, your life's work, City Love, what's on the horizon? What's cooking? You mentioned the animation, which I want to make sure we show some love and show some support for in all of our social media platforms. But what's cooking for City Love?
Thank you. First of all, yeah, we would love that, sharing that video. That's great. And we've actually been dreaming up for a little while. Besides working on some more animations and a curriculum, we're really excited about thinking about where Mr. Rogers left off and picking up with that. And so we've been in the dreaming phase. And as soon as this shelter in place and quarantining is over, we're going to be trying to manifest it. But, really make a show that is spreading that love, that's opening up dialogue about race, about justice, letting people tell their stories, and kind of, just trying to weave the story of America and make this show music for the world we need, but show them. We talk about it as being like a mixture of Mr. Rogers meets Oprah meets High School Musical on the streets of Philly kind of thing. So.
Yes. And I feel like we quote you a lot of times, all the time, Brother Eddie, where you talk about just representing the brand. How do you build a team of folks that can really represent the brand well and just like hold out the values and the mission and vision and have it be held by more people. I just think what you've built there with WPC is just such a amazing model, and it's incredible. So we want to build it out, this decade and just have more folks in there holding it, working to uphold it, and so that we can get it to more folks and that folks can just be really leaned into, rooted in their strengths and just take it on this decade and beyond.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, just want y'all to know, anytime you want to be at the White Privilege Conference or some of our smaller versions now called the White Privilege Symposiums, you are invited. As long as y'all will cooperate and collaborate, we are on board, and I'm looking forward to continuing over this decade and the decade after to try to keep bringing the world together using music as a part of that platform. Let me ask y'all this in closing. We've been asking people, have you been watching anything or reading anything or listening to anything? We want to add that since we have y'all here as well, that you would recommend to folks that would be good since they've got a little extra time on their hands. So can you add to our streaming list or our book list or help us start a music list that you would recommend for folks as we get ready to close out?
Well, one thing I'm going to be listening to tonight at 8 o'clock is this guy over here playing with his housemate on Instagram. So got to check that out. That's one.
Oh, that's love, bro. I appreciate that. Oh, here it is. I've been reading this book called Active Hope, How to Face the Mess We're In Without Going Crazy by Joanna Macy and Chris Johnstone. And it's quite a book to read. I had it from my climate justice course I've been co-teaching. And it's wild to read it right now, but it's very hopeful. It has beautiful exercises in there you can do. Just talks about the power of gratitude, You know, how we let all the emotions in so that we can actually be more rooted, more aligned with our hopes and dreams. So that's been great. And any music, I mean, I'm always listening to new tunes. I nothing's coming. It's like they're all stuck in my brain at once, so I can't recommend just one thing to listen to. But who did Imani tell us about? I've been listening to this Tiny Desk concert.
Oh yeah, let's see. It was Lucky Day.
Lucky Day. Recommend Lucky Day, Tiny Desk concert.
Yeah,
it's amazing R&B artist from New Orleans. Has a full band on the Tiny Desk. It's popping. It's popping.
Yeah, that's great. Well, if y'all think of anything additionally, particularly musically, please give us an email. Jenny and I will add it to your posting, as well as continue to keep that list growing. Because I've been asking people what you're watching, and then we had someone say, "Hey, let's expand the reading," and now y'all have inspired us to expand the listening as well. But again, I appreciate y'all, Dwight, Brian. I mean, it's been one exciting ride thus far, and I'm looking forward for the next decade or two. And in closing, it's only for y'all I would share my little rhyme, because it's all I got.
Yeah.
Let me drop that on y'all, because I know y'all could appreciate an old man rapper. So my name is Eddie. I'm really cool. I'm cool like the water in your swimming pool. Cooler than ice, cooler than the Pope. I'm cooler than the coolest drink down your throat. I appreciate y'all.
Let's go. Run it back.
So I appreciate y'all
next
inspiring a
album.
little artistic inspiration in the young old fella over here. And y'all keep doing what you're doing, man. I appreciate you. Thanks for coming on. Be safe and keep on keeping music alive.
Thank you,
so
brother
much
Eddie.
for having us.
Yeah, thank y'all. Thank you, Jenny. Thank y'all. Appreciate you.
Peace. City love. City love.